right, will welcome to Thursday, which around here is referred to as Thankful Thursday. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's a thankful Thursday. So hit me some of that.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
Such a good sound effect. That's such a good compilation. Pushing buttons on the board. I'm thankful for JP. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm great. Thankful for you today on this Thankful Thursday.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah, Thankful Thursday, and we got a lot to be thankful for. We're hearing, by the way, that WVNN, our affiliate out of Huntsville, may have just gone back on the air. Do we know confirmation on that?
So allegedly, we got the satellite shows are working on VNN now, so we should be going out over the VNN airwaves up there, but not on the app. So if you're in WVNN's, region area, that you should hear us. But other than that, it's just our live stream.
Okay. And then you can always get us, by the way, again, online, as always. I will tell you that storm was something else. A lot of lightning. It really did some damage at WVNN's station house. So it's more than just that one channel. And they're really working through a lot. We on the on this side at the Rightside studios, the one issue we have is that part of our phone system fried. So we can get text messages, but we still can't take phone calls, although we did order a new part, which should be here anytime. So we'll get that up and running. Don't you worry. We'll have you calling back in anytime now. In the meantime, I got a show for you, man. Don't forget, it is Thursday, Thankful Thursday. And so halfway through hour number 2, we're going to do a round of Butters and Lee. So that's coming up at halfway through hour number 2. And then, oh yeah, there's still a triple dipper. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right. The Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first out the gate, oh yeah, inside the Beltway. Going to run a little Beltway action. There's a whole lot too, by the way, a whole lot going on in the Beltway. Like, this is crazy how much there is. And some of it happened in the middle of the night, which, by the way, was not like in the dark of night they ran a bill. No. This was because the Democrats continued to filibuster and the Republicans refused to leave, and they stayed up all night long to work on major legislation. I'll tell you about that. Inside the Beltway, all the stuff as number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, you know the deal, man. Every once in a while, I look around and realize how much is happening in and around and amongst us, right here in our backyard, right here where we live, right here in like the Southeast. And we're going to talk about some home fries. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper, going to cook up a batch of home fries. And then number 3, sooner or later, I'm going to get back to having actually adventures in woke world. But so far, most of them have been like woke on its last, breath, the dying breath of wokeness. But I've also got right now today, just a few woke wonders I got to tell you about. Like, wow, that was pretty incredible. And that was pretty woke all at one time. Woke wonders is number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me move on into the Rightside Way opening monologue, and I'll just remind you guys that attorney Stan McDonald, he's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer & Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law, and Stan McDonald is indeed the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue, an OG ruffian from way back, and I'll tell you more about Stan here in a few minutes, but yes, he is the sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. All right, I'm going to talk about one of JP's favorite movies. Did you ever see the movie Moneyball? Moneyball, great flick. Really, really great flick. Stars Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. It's a true story, too, by the way. True story of the 2002 effort by the Oakland A's general manager, Billy Beane, to build a winning team from a franchise that had a limited budget. It's like an epic story of doing what I would call building the bench. Because in any team, you got to have the bench, right? The ability to field players, but also have a depth chart that replaces your on-field losses. You got to have a full bench. It's got to be worthy candidates, each one of them having their own role down and able to jump in where needed, though. And without a deep bench, if you think about it, without a deep bench, you run the risk of coming up short when your current lineup suffers some unexpected losses. So the story in Moneyball was that Billy Beane, the character played by Brad Pitt, he was the general manager for the Oakland A's. And they had just lost to the Yankees for the American League Division Series. And soon after that, Beane found out that his top 3 players were all leaving the team. And he basically had to put together another team, like almost a new team. And he also needed to put some depth in. But But he wasn't even being given by the owners a strong enough budget to recruit star talent. So he went scouting, but he found something. Actually, he really found someone that he didn't expect. While he was visiting the Cleveland Indians looking for a trade, he came across a young Yale economics graduate named Peter Brand, played by Jonah Hill in the movie. And sort of like the Rain Man with statistics, right? And numerical predictions, Brand had developed his own system for assessing players as recruits, but yet nobody was taking him seriously, except Billy Beane. So Beane hired him and made him the assistant general manager for the A's. And then they went on the hunt for players that they could afford. Players who were either underappreciated or undiscovered or coming off the injury list or something like that, but all of them whom were players that Brand's numbers said would perform given certain conditions. Well, it was anything but traditional recruiting, and Beane took a lot of heat for it. He began bucking his team owner and contradicting fan opinion. Sports writers wrote him off as a nut. He recruited guys from the minors, some that came off the bench for other franchises. He even went so far as to trade off his 2 top players for trade rights to multiple others, leaving his team owner no choice but to have to play the system that Beane and Brand had developed. And they were 11 games down. They were 11 games down, but then they suddenly hit a stride. They got a new relief pitcher that Brand's numbers had said go with. And in short order, they closed to just 4 games behind. And eventually, with a new bench and a new system, the A's won the 2002 American League West title. And they didn't make the series that year, but folks were seriously taking notice. So much so that the Boston Red Sox contacted Beane, told him if he would come to work for them and implement his new system for their franchise, they would make him the highest paid general manager in Major League history at the time. He actually turned it down, decided he wanted to stay with the A's, be close to his daughter. But the Red Sox figured out that the Beane Brand Moneyball system for themselves, so yeah, they went and put it into action. And just 2 seasons later, the Red Sox broke their 86-year drought and won the 2004 World Series using the Beane Brand Moneyball recruiting system to build their own bench. It was actually a really good movie, a really great story. But it's made even better by the fact that it was a really good true story about somebody who actually saw a better way, if you will. A better, more efficient, off-standard, out-of-the-box way to build a team, to create some depth, to build a bench. And that, my friends, is my point. Because that's what we're going to have to be doing across this state if we don't want to see our politics go purple. You heard me. I'm saying we have to get outside the box and begin a more active recruiting of candidates for all of our offices. I mean, actual conservatives who have principled positions that go beyond party politics. Now, you know me, I'm a longtime Republican. I'm a former county party chairman myself. I'm a member of the Republican State Executive Committee. I was an elected Republican state senator. That's my team. That's my brand. That's who I root for. But when have you ever known any sports team to just sit on their laurels and wait to see who decides they want to try out for the team? No. The winning teams don't, that's for sure. They recruit. They fill their capabilities gaps with specialized players. They develop their skill sets and they train them with not only the playbook, but also with the team branding, the team culture. And they go find the team members they want, the team members that they will be proud of, the team members that they will win with. I mean, why should it be any different with politics? So let me ask you this. Who's running for your local school board? Who's running your city council? What candidates are lined up to run for mayor of even the smallest towns in our state? I mean, keep in mind, we actually had recently, not in the last gubernatorial election, we had a candidate in the primary for governor who was the mayor of a small town, a very small town with less than 4,500 people. A Republican, allegedly, who ran on the idea of legalizing marijuana. Well, that's interesting. But that's what happens when we don't pay attention. That's the kind of thing we get when we don't ask questions. That's what happens when we don't recruit candidates. All we do is wait to see who shows up and runs. But in a different vein, I have a friend, Representative Mac Butler. He recruited me to join the local Republican Party about 20-something years ago. He was the local party chairman then himself. He was a member of the school board. He's now in Montgomery serving in the legislature. And he's living proof that good guys can win and that not everybody has to run for the big ticket $1 million races up front. Yeah, Mac Butler, school board, now state house. Mac Butler's the one who recruited me to the party. And then another man, me personally, a guy named Roy Smith came and recruited me to run for the Senate. And I've often wondered, what would have happened if those 2 men had not called on me and asked me to get in the mix? They recruited me. I had never run for office before, but they did. And I'm sitting right here now at this microphone because those men recruited me to do something. But we're coming up on a huge season right now. I don't recall a time in Alabama politics where we had so many open seats ever. We got empty seats for mayors, council, school boards, some legislative races, and every single one of our statewide races for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, you name it. They're all open. How in the world can we see that many open seats and not go out and actually recruit a quality conservative candidate to run for some of them? Somebody who's bona fide, somebody who has backbone, somebody who has a calling and principles and stamina. We have to actually, we have to be intentional about who we elect. But before we elect, we have to first select. Select the ones that will do the best job. Select them because you know them or you like what they stand for. We can't just wait around and see who shows up to qualify to run for office. We have to actually go find them and find good ones and then back them. And I'll tell you this, elected officials are nothing special. They may have some cool stuff on their resumes, but generally speaking, they're just normal folks who are doing a job. And they come from all walks of life. Think about it. I've told you before that when I sat at my desk in Montgomery on the Senate floor, I had a retired teacher to my right. I had a retired Marine to my left. I had a farmer, a dentist, and a restaurant owner and a real estate agent all sitting right around me. All sitting around me as living proof that there is no special qualification to be an elected official. It didn't matter where they came from or how much education they had. What we need are people of principles. And that's why we need to focus on building our bench. I mean, who are we asking? Who are we encouraging? Who are we cajoling and begging to run for office? All offices, every office. We need to deepen the roster so that when one retires or leaves or goes down, there are so many others we can look to fill the role. We got to recruit. In politics, you actually have to recruit and you got to get outside the box. Go find that man or woman who you appreciate as a true conservative who may never have ever run for office even. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Tell them, though, that you'll knock on doors and put up a sign and help with whatever if they will please run. Or consider this. Maybe that person is you. Maybe you have more to offer than you know. All I know is this. We've got to build the conservative bench. Right now, the party that would house that kind of candidate is the party of Reagan, the Republican Party. But being a conservative and being a Republican is not always the same thing. So we have to go find the actual conservatives. We got to build the bench, the conservative bench. In Moneyball, Billy Beane changed the way we thought about doing things with the help of a numbers guy who sat in a cubicle looking at stats. He quit thinking, Billy Beane did. He quit thinking about players. He started thinking about wins. And to think about wins, he had to think about runs. And to think about runs, he had to examine how he recruited. And he changed baseball recruiting forever. And he built his bench. And that's exactly what we have to do in our politics. We got to quit believing that only the star power can win the day. Go find the unexpected hero and recruit them to run for office. And like I said, maybe it's you. And maybe it'll change our politics forever, like Billy Beane changed baseball. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yep, there it is. I mean, it's true. He did. He changed the face of baseball recruiting. He changed the way players were looked at. And he did it by getting out of the box. And he went and built his bench by recruiting. And that's exactly what we have to do in our politics. Don't just wait to see who shows up. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, I see a bunch of text messages coming in. That's awesome. Just remember, our phones are down, but our text lines are open. So until we get that new part that got fried in the storm the other night, we're going to be just texting with you. In the meantime, it's 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it. Don't call it. Hey, let me jump back real quick and tell you about attorney Stan McDonald. I was actually with Stan this morning, as a matter of fact. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee out of Huntsville. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. And listen, I've said so many times, Stan is somebody who's not only able to advocate for you, legally speaking, but he is somebody who's been literally in the mix, in the fray, in the trenches as a conservative warrior now for years. He's an OG ruffian. So yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, he can represent you in any local, state, or federal court. He's represented his clients in thousands of real estate transactions over the years. I like to say if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries are going to have no greater foe. So yes, attorney Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. I'm going to tell you how to reach him with a phone number. You ready? Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And please tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And here we go. No representation made. The quality of legal stories be performed is great. The quality of legal stories for the lawyers. Wow.
That's yet another 10.
Wow.
I think that's 2 10s this week. There was no slurs anywhere in there.
I don't want to brag or anything, but that was smoking. Smoking. That's a hot tamale right there.
That was nice. Very nice.
Okay.
Well done.
Feeling pretty proud of myself. I got a bunch of text line stuff going on. Let's see what's happening. John from Huntsville says, Phil, awesome monologue. Also, thank you, John. Did you hear that a woman has been detained after a shooting outside the CIA headquarters in McLean, Virginia? No, I did not. I heard that there was something that happened. All I saw the headline said was an incident. So it was a shooting. I did not know that. The tragedy shooting that I do know of also was the one that happened outside the Jewish Museum that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Jeff Rowe from Indiana says, hey, Phil, you realize you're absolutely tone deaf when you do that kind of monologue. What? I think you're looking. Oh, okay. I see what he's saying.
He said the same comment on the YouTube, actually.
Jeff wants me to run for office. I've run for office, Jeff. I have. I think right now I am doing all that I can do to impact culture in place where God has put me. So thank you, brother. Allie from Mathis says, any chance you're getting back in the okay. It's the same thing. She says she would work our campaign. I have no plans, Allie, and God has not revealed any such thing to me. So there's that. Connor from Huntsville says, hey, Phil, Connor from Huntsville, great monologue. So true. Some of the most well, the other side plays the long game. Yes, that's true. I'm trying to, there's no punctuation, so I'm trying to figure out where it breaks. You're talking about some of the most reprehensible liberal politicians got their start on school boards and city councils. And so, yeah, not only do conservatives need representation, we need to be working hard to keep certain people out of those positions. Perfect point, Connor from Huntsville. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show, this show. Whew, it goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. Down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we get to call once again Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. Oh, yeah. And that's just the radio, y'all. That's what I love is this radio audience is still awesome, but we also have the whole awesomeness of our online audience. So no matter where you are in the whole wide world, go to the World Wide Web. You can check us out on YouTube, X, Facebook, our website, rightsidemedia.org. And thank you very much, all of you, for making this what it is. I'll be honest with you, there are days when sometimes it's just a long day, right? Like by the time I get here halfway through the day, it's already been a long day. And something about this audience just fires me back up. And I get going. And it's because I get a chance just to hang with y'all and swap thoughts. One of those thoughts is Chris from Gadsden says, if Senator Tuberville decides to run for governor, you could run to You could run to take his spot and you wouldn't have to change your social media handles. It's true. I'm at Sin Phil Williams. No.
One may hypothesize you kept that name for a reason on your ex.
No.
I'm just stirring the pot now.
But thank you very much. All y'all, thank you very much. Do you know the story, JP, about me being interviewed to be the U.S. Senator? When
you mentioned it to me before off of air. Yeah.
Did I tell you how it broke down? What happened? Mm-mm. All right, let's chase a rabbit for a minute. So I'm in the state Senate, and Jeff Sessions resigned from the Senate to go be the Attorney General for Donald Trump's first administration, which left a vacancy, which meant that the governor had to appoint someone to fill the seat. And it wound up, unfortunately, being Luther Strange, which was a complete debacle. That's a whole nother story. But in the meantime, I wound up being on the short list for the governor for interviews. And so I am one of, I think, 6 people that he interviewed for the role. And I'm sitting in Governor Bentley's office. And we're at the big conference table, and he said, Phil, you got a great resume. I've looked at all over. He said, I'll be honest with you, you submitted me the best stuff to look at that anybody else did. Thank you very much. I said, sure, Governor, thank you. And then there's a sticky note on the table right next to him. And he looks at it and he goes, look at this. He picks it up and looks at it. He goes, it's Mitch McConnell. It's the 3rd time he's called me. He's pressured me. He keeps telling me, don't send me one of those Freedom Caucus types. As soon as he said that, I thought, I didn't get the job.
Isn't that ridiculous, though?
Yeah, but McConnell was saying, don't send me a conservative.
Yes, that's the thing. That's what's ridiculous about it. Send me somebody from the establishment, Governor.
Yeah,
don't send me a real conservative.
No doubt. Wow. So, yeah, I didn't get the job. Instead, the guy who was actually investigating Bentley for crimes wound up getting the job, which just
funny how that works.
Went swimmingly.
Yeah.
You will look for them and they will not be found.
Yeah.
He's no longer there. I'm talking about Luther Strange. Well, I guess Bentley too, but Luther Strange is who I'm talking about. William from Huntsville says another huge win for the Second Amendment. Suppressors were taken off the NFA items in the big, beautiful bill. I did not know that. That is awesome. That is cool. Listen, as an attorney, I've helped people set up firearms trusts so they can keep their weapons, including their suppressors, all their NFA firearms in a trust. And that is very cool. I will check that out. William, thank you for the heads up. JT Lacey Springs says, thanks so much for yesterday's text regarding WVNM being off, sir. Otherwise, I would have suspected Dale Jackson had spilled his coffee on the transmitter. We don't know for a fact that didn't happen.
The words, that's still not ruled out yet.
Yes, there's always the possibility.
Well, okay, well, let's not fool ourselves. It wouldn't be coffee. It'd be Mountain Dew. He spilled on it.
Let's not fool ourselves. It'd been a beer.
Yeah.
Beer in the studio. Surely it would have. Jim from Athens, just a couple more, says, I've been asked to run from office. That's reverse recruiting, Jim. All right, listen, let me get a few more. Oh, I'm sorry. There are more. I got two more. I didn't see it. Barry from Huntsville, thank you for telling us we're back on WVNN. I didn't know they were back up until you'd said that earlier. And then Jack from Huntsville says, love Moneyball, favorite baseball movie. Good quote about the movie, that Moneyball is to baseball what the Social Network was to Facebook. Okay. It's all about the drama behind the scenes. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And it's just, I love the fact that it's a true story. All right, listen, we got to get moving here. A bunch of y'all are texting in. Keep on texting. We'll keep on reading them. But let me jump into the first dipper. And I will say this. I had not planned on having to do this story. But there's been a tragedy that occurred up in DC. Because my first dipper is called Inside the Beltway. And what I'm going to tell you is a series of things, most of them are actually good. But then there's this one. We had an incident that occurred overnight. I think it happened last night, I guess. Is that what it was?
It was late last
night.
night.
Last night there was an event. There's the Washington, D.C., the Capitol has the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. And there's an event that takes place annually there. It's called the Reconciliation Night, I believe. And the whole event is on coming together, an idea of looking past issues and race and ethnic differences and the reconciliation. And last night, one of these pro-Palestinian demonstrators who believes that their mission in life is to scream, free, free Palestine, like that really means something, decided to go there, and a young couple was walking out of the event, and they are both staffers at the Jewish embassy, at the Israeli embassy. And apparently they have been described by coworkers or family members, I've forgotten which, I think it's a family member actually, said they were like stars at the embassy. They were a young couple in love, that he was about to actually take her home to Israel to meet his parents and propose to her in Jerusalem. And that was the plan. And they were gunned down for daring to be Jewish on the streets of our capital. Now, I got to say, Caroline Levitt spoke up as the White House press secretary today, and their names were Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram. So let's say their names, Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, soon to be engaged. And she said the evil of anti-Semitism must be eradicated from our society. And she said hatred has no place in the United States of America under President Donald Trump. Everyone here at the White House is praying for the victims, the friends and families during this unimaginable time. The shooter is a 30-year-old guy from Chicago who drove to D.C. for this purpose. A guy named Elias Rodriguez. Elias Rodriguez, we're told by a witness at the scene, that he walked in after the shooting, and they heard several shots outside. He walked calmly inside the door, and a woman there said something like, hello, sir, or, whatever. And he pulled one of those keffiyeh scarves out of his jacket pocket and waved it in the air and began to yell, free, free Palestine. I'm the one who did it. He's now been arrested. He's in custody. And two young people, simply because they're Jewish, are now dead. I think the media bears some responsibility in this. And I'm going to be honest with you, as much as I hate to be political, I'm going to have to. I think the Democrat Party bears some ownership in the anti-Semitic sentiment that has been allowed to run rampant for the last 4 years. We have been watching unfettered as college campuses like Columbia, Harvard, other Ivy Leagues, they would have encampments that would be, blocking sidewalks and stopping Jewish students from going to class and yelling free Palestine. You got that one kid, Khalil, who was a Columbia grad, who was actually, they're trying to deport him, and the Democrats are opposing it, despite the fact that he organized all of these pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protests on campus and disrupted life for everybody, including the Jewish students. And I look at all of this and I think, that is not America. Do not couch this in a free speech mode. You're not allowed to walk into a crowded theater and yell fire because it puts people at risk. You're not allowed to break the law to claim freedom of speech. Your constitutional rights do not allow you to infringe upon other people such that their lives are at risk because you want to say something, do something, act upon something. It doesn't work that way. And this guy, this nut job, this anti-Semitic rabble, in my opinion, he's been stoked over the last few years by an anti-Semitic sentiment that was allowed to fester. And now we're seeing under the Trump administration, we're not putting up with it. Harvard, you've lost $3 billion in grants because you won't shut down anti-Semitic activity on your campus. We're not talking about freedom of speech, Harvard. We're talking about Jewish students who pay their tuition not being allowed to get to their classes. We're talking about people having to lock themselves in the library at Columbia because they're being threatened by rabble. I'm just saying, this happened inside our beltway, in our nation's capital. And it's big enough, it is big enough that the Secretary of State has already spoken out about it. It's big enough that the President of the United States has already called the President or the Prime Minister of Israel. Netanyahu and Trump spoke this morning. 2 young staffers, soon to be engaged, gunned down on the streets of our nation's capital simply because they were Jewish. And my friends, that is not America. And that happened inside the Beltway. I'll go ahead and take a break right now. We'll take that break. We'll come right back, and I'll jump into some other things that have happened inside the Beltway, but that one deserved its own soliloquy. I'm not going to try and cap it with something else yet. I'll wait till after the break. In the meantime, just know this. Our hearts and prayers are with the people of Israel and with the families of these 2 fine young people. Yaron Lashinsky, Sarah Milgram, Phil Williams. Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. That's what we're doing. And by the way, thank you to all of you who have been clicking on the brand new podcast, the latest addition to, not edition, but addition to the lineup at Rightside Media is the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams, that'd be me, doing what we call long form interviews, where we sit down with the most interesting people in the world. I mean, like, these folks are like, man, and a lot of them like live around here. What? So yeah, I just finished one not long ago with Jared Hudson, former Navy SEAL, who now basically hunts down and interdicts human traffickers. And we did a great long interview on faith and family and going to war. And basically it's just been something else. Well, a bunch of y'all have been streaming it. Thank you so much for that. The Just Right podcast is available on all of our social media platforms. You can find it on our YouTube especially, or you can go to our website, rightsidemedia.org, and find everything we do all in one place. So check it out. The Just Right podcast with Phil Williams, first edition already out. Next edition comes out next Tuesday. So inside the Beltway, y'all, I don't know if you saw it or not. In fact, if you didn't see it, you just weren't paying attention, because last night we had a major piece of legislation, the one that has been referred to as the Big Beautiful Bill. The Big Beautiful Bill just passed the House, and it was a close. Basically it was by a 1-vote margin. We had one Republican who defected. He was not going to support it, Thomas Massey. And I get his position. I am not a fan of the spending and the debt. I'm not. Please don't think that I am. I believe this is one of those where I had to finally find my happy place with what I would call an 80% solution, as opposed to having 100% of nothing. So in this particular case, they got the Big Beautiful Bill past the House. It now goes to the Senate. But what does that mean for us? Well, it means we're not done, but it means that we are basically tracking in the right direction, because I think that it was going to be closer in the House than it was going to be in the Senate. I do believe the Senate will probably have some massaging and some amendments and things, and it may still have to get reconciled between the House and the Senate afterwards. But getting it through the House was the hurdle. It does have some cuts. It does just basically get rid of some Green New Steel crap that was in there from all the the Biden years, where they were spending money wantonly on the existential crisis of climate change. It does have money for the southern border. It does have policies and funding for Department of Defense. It does get rid of wokeness in a lot of ways. And it also does things like it begins the funding for the Golden Dome missile shield. And, oh, by the way, perhaps most important, it's got some major tax breaks in there. It basically extended the Trump tax cuts, made them permanent. And that's huge, because if we didn't do that, you're about to have the biggest tax increase in our nation's history as the original ones expired. So yeah, they got that done. And then there's stuff like, no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, which is kind of ironic, because the state legislature just let the no tax on overtime expire because, we just don't know about that. And they're doing it in DC. Go figure. All I know is here's my assessment of this. This is the most comprehensive piece of legislation on the Republican side since the contract with America under Newt Gingrich. It is the most comprehensive single piece of legislation since the days of the contract with America. We're looking at tax cuts, we're looking at defense, we're looking at securing our southern border, all of it wrapped into one major piece of omnibus legislation. And that's a big deal. And the fact that they got it through, and listen, was it ugly? Yeah, it was. It was ugly in the sense of Democrats. It was ugly in the sense of fighting in the Republican caucus. It was also exactly the way it's supposed to go. I'll be honest. Because what I'm almost as proud of is the way they passed it. Because what happened here is not the way it's been going in the past. You had a major piece of legislation, and you had members of the Republican caucus who were of this opinion and that opinion and some of that opinion and a little bit of this opinion. And it took them having to hash things out together and hash it out some more, and then hash it out some more, and then lose a vote in committee, and then bring the bill back, and then keep it moving and not letting it go. And then the Speaker of the House actually providing leadership. And then the President of the United States came over to the Capitol to rally the troops himself and say why it was so important. That's a big deal, y'all. And then the Democrats opposed everything they did. And last night, they literally got the bill to the House floor. They had to pass all the procedural hurdles because those are real. They had to get it through the Rules Committee because that's real. And once they got through all of it, they brought it to the House floor. And I don't know if you know this or not, but they stayed on it for the most part all night long. Now, some will say, Democrats go, they passed it in the dark of night. Only because of Democrats. They would have passed it at 6 o'clock last night. I have been in all-nighters in the state capitol. And I'll be honest with you, it's exhausting. And I'm not going to try and pretend otherwise. It just is. When you're constantly going up and down the hall because you're about to call a vote and the Democrats start filibustering, then you get down there and you debate some more, and then somebody else has to man the microphone, and you do the things and you go back and forth, and you're watching the clock and you're listening for the tones and you're trying to figure out with your staff where we are and what did that amendment say. And next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. You're still trying to figure out whether you're going to get the vote done that night. And then somebody else says, I think we have a deal. What's the deal on? Oh, no, don't vote on that yet. I want to know the deal. And then you're going back and forth. The first couple of years I was in the legislature, because we were brand new at this and we were running roughshod over Democrats, we were passing things they hated. And we had, one time I asked a guy who had been there for a long time, Senator Jimmy Hawley from down in the Wiregrass area, I said, Jimmy, how many times you done an all-nighter in your years in the Senate? He looked at me and he says, Phil, I believe I've done it about 5 times and 4 of them in this session. So that's where we were, man. And listen, it's one thing to say I'm 22 years old and I stayed up all night. It's another thing to say I'm 50 some odd years old and I stayed up all night along with everybody else, some of whom were 70 and 80 years old. But what?
I heard a rumor there was a Republican representative that actually missed the vote last night because he fell asleep. I'm gonna have to do some verification on that, but it's a rumor. I'd have to find exactly who it was. I
have not heard that. I did hear there was one abstention, but that was a guy from the Freedom Caucus, and I don't think he would have missed it. All right. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. am I coming from? I don't know where I'm coming from right now, JP.
Don't know.
My gosh, it's been a day already. Solid conservative and just plain right. There you have it. Hour number 2 on a thankful Thursday. I'm thankful I got through that intro.
Where'd you come from? Where'd you
I
go?
don't know. I stayed right here in my seat the entire time we were on break. Yeah, listen, I'm going to keep on with this dipper we're on, but don't forget, coming up bottom of the hour, we switch over to Butters and Lee. So yeah, Butters and Lee will be on. It is Thankful Thursday. That is their day to join us. So Butters and Lee coming up in about 30 minutes. So we just talked about the big, beautiful bill. And I just had, oh, by the way, somebody text me or send me a message on Facebook because I put out, I do a thing every morning called the Thoughts on the Morning Drive. And it's a short video, about a minute, where I pick a topic and I talk about my thoughts on it and then post that to social media every morning. Anyway, somebody just hit me up on it because I talked about this big, beautiful bill. And they said, will it provide tax relief to seniors on Social Security? And that is one of the things that my understanding is in the bill. So it's tax relief, not just for those who are still in the working world on like overtime and taxes on tips relief and extending the Trump tax cuts overall. It's also going to be something that provides tax relief to seniors who are on Social Security, I believe. What you got?
Well, I was David Bucky just commented something that on the YouTube channel said, now if they would just eliminate tax on Social Security and military retirement.
I'm for the military retirement too. I'm for all of it, but yes. Dang, you know what? Would you mind Googling and make sure I'd say like type in military retirement, big, beautiful bill, see what comes up. The other thing it also has though, is they increase the cap on what's known as the SALT deduction. So if you're somebody who itemizes your taxes and you live in one of those high tax states, you're allowed to deduct up to $10,000 towards things you paid at the state and local level for property taxes and all kinds of other state income taxes. And so you can deduct that now. Currently, the cap is at $10,000. They raised the cap to $40,000. What that was a concession for some of the blue state Republicans. There are indeed Republicans in places like, Illinois and California, and that's a high tax state. Alabama, Tennessee, we won't feel it much. We don't deal with the same level of tax at the state and local level. But in those places, it can be onerous. So they just raised that to $40,000. It was a concession to get everybody on board. And not everybody was, for this, but they also knew that they could get the other Republicans happy if they could let them go home and say, hey, all of y'all that live in this crazy high tax state that I represent, I got you a bigger tax break. Up to $40,000 now on the SALT deduction cap. What'd you find out?
So I'm not seeing anything with military retirement, but the only thing I'm seeing is $8.5 billion in the big, beautiful bill for military quality of life boost initiatives.
Yeah, I think that's going to be things like we have some serious housing issues on military posts.
It says $1.3 billion of that's going to barracks maintenance.
Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, this is 20 years ago, but I mobbed out of Fort Bragg, and they put us in these crappy World War II barracks that I'm pretty sure were filled with asbestos and lead paint. And it was awful. But at one point they had to move us out of those for some reason. I think another unit was coming through. And so the 82nd Airborne, one of the brigade combat teams was actually out. And they put us in the 82nd's barracks overnight. I was embarrassed that the premier airborne division in the entire world had barracks that I would not want my college kids staying in if it was a dorm. It was awful. We're talking mold. We're talking ceiling panels missing. We're talking lights not working. We're talking, it was just gross. So
when you're the United States, that shouldn't be a thing.
That should not be a thing. I say fix it. All right. Inside the Beltway, what else do we have? Well, we had the big, beautiful bill. And of course we had the death. I will say this, there's been some amazing things happening in terms of the Trump team just ripping people a new one. It's gotten to the point of being comedy. I mean, I don't know why anybody would want Marco Rubio to come testify and try to take him to task, because that guy can wear people out with words. And then Linda McMahon, my gosh, I mean, she goes WWF on people pretty quick. But Linda McMahon, story here from Fox News that I hold in my calloused former paratrooper hand, she went up there and sparks were flying. She faced off against Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, who I believe, yes, Bonnie Watson Coleman is one of those who was in the big melee outside the ICE detention facility in Newark, New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. She's the 80-year-old grandma who thinks it's okay to protest and push people around. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. With 2 sons who did time for armed robbery. Okay.
Apple don't fall far from the tree, I guess.
There you go. So Watson Coleman started off with Linda McMahon saying, do you believe there's illegal discrimination against people who are black or brown? And McMahon just looked at her and said, I think it still exists in some areas. Well, then tell me why the Office of Civil Rights and the Department of Education is being decimated. To which McMahon responded, it isn't being decimated. We have reduced the size of it. However, we're taking on a backlog of cases that were left over from the Biden administration. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get this straight. So what you're saying is Linda McMahon put her in her place and said that we are able to actually do more with less and clean up the things left behind by the Biden administration. And McMahon got, all kinds of rebuke from a visibly frustrated Watson Coleman, says the article. McMahon then remained composed, said, I am the Secretary of Education, been approved to run this agency by Congress, and I was appointed by the president, and I serve at his pleasure. So therefore, the direction of his administration is what I will follow. Bam. How do you like me now? By the way, in that same hearing, Alabama Republican Chairman Robert Adderholt praised McMahon's approach, noting that despite $3 trillion in federal education spending since 1980, student achievement has not even improved a bit, and said, get her done, basically. We also had Marco Rubio, who I think is quickly making a name for himself as someone who has transcended from the Senate into a very viable candidate for executive branch office in the next election. I'm already seeing memes out there about a Vance Rubio ticket.
Yeah, I have to. Man, Rubio, obviously Homan and other people have been doing a great job, but Rubio has been a rock star, in my opinion.
He absolutely has. How many hats does he wear right now?
Exactly. That's the thing. He's been so good and so spread out.
Just unbelievable. Well, so Daily Wire has a piece that came out yesterday. Said on Tuesday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio went before a Senate hearing, and Senate Democrats went after him, and boy, were they sorry. One of which is, what's his name? Van Hollen, the guy who flew down to El Salvador to meet with Abrego Garcia. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. We have a soundbite from that one. You got it ready? I want to call up audio clip number 1. This is Rubio versus Senator Van Hollen. Play it.
Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come, you're going to see who you went to defend.
Senator,
I'm sorry,
please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated
Senator,
comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You've had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court in
Senator,
the United States because he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge and the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy.
It's just what an epic. By the way, I love how he rolled right past the margarita. He didn't just throw it out there and let it linger. He threw it out there, and it was like a drive-by.
It's like, oh, by the way.
Yeah, it was like just a complete drive-by shooting. In fact, can you start that over again? I want to hear that part again because it cracks me up. Because if you remember, what happened was this guy Van Hollen, he went down there. He had to see Kilmar Abrego Garcia, make sure he was safe. And they sat in a restaurant, and they've got margarita glasses with salt-crusted rims sitting on the table like, okay, so you flew to El Sal and you had, what, margaritas with the MS-13 guy? That's where it set Van Hollen off. Play it again.
In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy...
Stop. I think Marco Rubio is becoming one of my favorite people in office anywhere. Just too much fun, man.
I don't know if there's a bigger upgrade in this administration than Anthony Blinken to Marco Rubio.
Woo!
Woo!
Well, there was nowhere to go but up.
Exactly. But it's...
I don't know. I mean, Kristi Noem, Alejandro Mayorkas.
That's a good one. But, man, Rubio's just been a rock star.
Well, you did leave off the Joe Biden to Donald Trump piece.
Well, obviously, that's a given. Okay. That's the given part.
Okay. Outside of that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay. Wait a minute. Outside of J.D. Vance, Kamala Harris. Well, okay. Wait a minute.
They're all upgrades.
They're all upgrades. All right. Take me to a break, JP. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. Hey, I got to tell you, there's one more piece about the Rubio discussion yesterday in hearing. Fox News has a piece. So apparently, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who, by the way, how many years did he spend in the U.S. Senate? He knows the deal, right? He used to walk these same halls. Give the guy a break. Anyway, he's testifying before the House Foreign Affairs Committee in D.C. And one of the congressmen, Representative Brad Sherman, was just having none of it. And he asked a question. It's one of those things where he asked the question, but he didn't like the answer, so he tried to shut him back down. And the answer from Rubio was, well, I'll tell you right now that if you want to hear my answer, you're going to have to let me have a chance to get it out. And Sherman cut him off and said, well, I'm not going to do that. I just want a yes or a no. And Rubio said, this is not a game show. The answers are a little more involved than that. Good for him, man. Good for him.
I think my favorite soundbite, though, from the whole thing was Van Hollen. He ended his time by saying, I regret to inform you that he said, I have to tell you, to your face, I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. And he goes, well, Senator, you regretting voting for me just proves I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Do you have that soundbite?
I can get it very quickly.
Don't you get that soundbite? Because I thought that I was going to be tagged on to the one that I had. And then I realized as you were playing it, nope, I didn't grab that one. While he's doing that, let me get a few text messages. I've got a brand new texter from somewhere parts unknown. Who are you? I don't know who you are. But they texted in and said, there's no tax on military retirement. What acts like us leeches? What about all our private sector retirements? What are you saying? So basically, what this person's not going to tell me their name now, by the way. I guarantee you. So what you're saying is military retirement, don't give them a break. But just so you know, they didn't get a break. But yeah. Are you determined to play it like right now?
I didn't know it's hard to play. Here, I can pull it up for you, though.
So Jeff from Indiana, by the way, did text in. He goes, Phil, this phone situation you've got probably makes you miss a good Radio Shack where you can just go down there and get what you wanted. Yes, I thought about that. We actually had to order from a parts manufacturer. This wasn't even like an Amazon item. This was like, okay, we got to go to the company itself and get one. All right, you got that soundbite? Play it.
And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job based on what I know.
Well, that's just a flippant statement, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
I didn't ask.
Senator, please let the Secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his.
Your time's up, Senator, and willfully you.
That is hilarious. Good for him. You know what? They deserve that, though. I mean, who does that? You know what? I regret voting for you. Shut up.
He's a loser. I mean, it's
goob.
I would say he's among the worst, but he didn't even touch the surface
Yeah, that's true.
of his other colleagues.
His ilk.
Yeah.
Red from Tony, Alabama, checked in about the discussion we had earlier about anti-Semitism. He says, can't we just call it racism instead of anti-Semitism? Anti-Semitism is just a more disgustable? I think he meant disgusting word. Well, it is racism, but calling it anti-Semitism is the narrow focus of what it is. And that's the term. It's real. It's a thing. And it's historical. It's not just new. Ruminating Rocker from Flint Creek said that should not be considered freedom of speech, talking about the issues related to anti-Semitism again. That should not be considered freedom of speech, not when it ends in death. And I'm generally pretty extreme on freedom of speech. Yeah, I join you in that. I'm the same way. I'm a firm believer that I don't have to like what you say for you to have a right to say it. But you don't, and I know Ruminating Rocker gets this. I do not cotton to the idea that you are allowed to harm other people or shut down their liberties in order to be able to exercise your own. It doesn't work like that. John from Huntsville texted in. He said, JP, I got to give you a 5-point deduction because everybody knows that Dale Jackson does not drink Mountain Dew because he's a Coca-Cola guy and Mountain Dew is a Pepsi product. And Dale will also not drink a Pepsi Icy because Coke Ices are his favorite. And why John knows all that, I don't know.
I was about to say, I was his producer for like 7 months. I didn't even know that.
John, that sounds a little like a man crush, and I want you to stop right now. Just stop.
I don't know what energy drinks he was drinking, but he may go through like 4 or 5 every show. I see him during the breaks. Just
really? Just chugging them.
I mean, it's 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. You know, you got to do what you got to do.
Studio at his house?
Yeah.
Just rolls down. So I one time did my show from his house. And later on, we're on the Grand Council, and Jeff Poor said something like, so you did it from his house? I said, I did, man. It was awful. Nothing but beer cans and dirty socks everywhere. Adam from Athens checked in. He says, hey, Phil, today, while I'm wanting to pull my hair out trying to catch up from missing work yesterday, I'm thankful that my family was mostly unaffected from the storms. Not to mention, I got to watch my volunteers put the whooping on Bama. So there you have it. Adam from Athens, appreciate you, man, and glad you're safe. Glad very much that you're safe.
I don't think it was a whooping, but,
He called it a whooping. If he wants to call it a whooping.
It was like 3 runs.
Oh, come on. Sounds like a whooping to me.
No, it's not.
Wait, did Tennessee lead the entire time?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Then that's a whooping.
No, that's not how baseball works.
If Tennessee put 4 runs on the board in the final inning to take the lead after being down, that's not a whooping. But if Tennessee led the entire time and maintained a 3-run lead through the entire game, then it's a whooping.
All I know is about 45 minutes ago, Auburn got upset by Texas A&M. So I think we're both in the same boat.
Shut up. Red from Tony said disgustable, as in what are we saying here? Oh, digustable. Is that a word?
I've never heard of that.
I'm going to have to look this up. And then Graham from Meridianville says, hey, Phil, I'm about to get on I-65 heading north. Ask Jeff to send us a report about Nashville traffic. Thanks. So, Jeff, anytime you have something about Nashville traffic, go ahead and send it. We need to know. I got people heading north on right now.
We have a segment of the traffic update from Jeff once an hour.
I just realized Red is trying to say digest, but he keeps saying digust.
He does. He said digest 3 times.
3 times. Okay, Red is spelled Digeust. Okay. Okay, nice. By the way, Adam says it was a comeback run. So, okay, maybe it wasn't a whooping.
Yeah, we came back. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. All right, we're coming up next on Butters and Lee. We'll come right back from the break. You know the deal. I have a whole segment with them where I ask them questions. We see where it goes, and then we flip the script, and they ask me any question in the world, and I just hope I got an answer when they do. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all have talked about this show. This show, I mean to say, covers some ground, like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden, all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we get to call once again Fort Benning. And yeah, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And I am glad of it. And oh, by the way, that's just our radio audience. And there's the online folks who stream the show, download the show, podcast the show. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. We love you. Y'all are the reason why we do this. All right. Technology being what it is, we don't have phones today, but we do have internet connectivity. And we have a system we use called Clean Feed occasionally. And I do believe we got all of our peeps on. So right now, I'm going to call the roll. All right, sitting right here, somewhere very near the Rightside studio, that man who is smooth as butter, who happens to be called Butters. Butters, are you on the line?
I am most definitely here.
You are indeed. Thank you, brother. And then also looking north towards Huntsville is the dynamic diva of punditry on the line, Lee from Huntsville. Are you there?
She needs to unmute herself.
If Lee could unmute herself, that would be awesome. Is she there?
She's there, but she's got herself muted.
Oh, golly. You can't unmute her from this side? Well, Lee, if you can hear me, unmute yourself.
I'm here. Unmute
yourself. Okay.
I did. I'm here.
Okay, turn off your radio because I hear you yelling in the background. This is crazy. All right. Hey, I pronounce a quorum. Hit it, man. All right, Lee, thank you so much for using alternate technology to connectivity. Redundant comms is a thing on a mission. You got to always have redundant comms when you go to the field. All right, first question.
Well, you got to do what you do to make it work.
You got to do what you do. And storms being, by the way, let me ask this real quick. You living in that area, South Huntsville did she drop off again? Holy crap. All right, never mind. I'm going to move on. I'm going to take the first question. I'm going to go to Butters because Lee is not with us right now. Hey, so Butterman, I'm assuming you've seen the news, horrible news. We had two young people who were murdered this morning in Washington, D.C. simply for being Jewish. They were both a young couple that worked at the Israeli embassy. The killer was yelling "Free Palestine" as he murdered them outside the Jewish Museum. And here's my question for you. Is this something, I mean, should we see any burden of responsibility being assigned to the progressive left for all the rants about anti-Semitism, or is that just a free speech issue? Your thoughts on that, Butterman?
Yeah.
I think it's a massive slippery slope. And obviously there are limitations to free speech that, when you're calling for violence, but on the other side, if you try to regulate it, you try to control it, and you really leave an open-ended opportunity, either side can start really getting really messy. And obviously we've seen, seen the repercussions of that on the left against the right.
Yeah. I mean,
so before jumping on board with, we need to regulate it all. I definitely, yes, I think there is a very, very important conversation to be had of the same thing with why do you hate Hitler or why do you hate Trump so much? Because you keep calling him Hitler and saying he's going to end the world. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Can you stop that by regulating the speech? I'm not sure that makes a difference.
Lee, is Lee back?
That answers your question.
Yeah, well, it does. It does some. I think it's certainly part of the dialogue. But Lee, your thoughts? Did you hear the question about the anti-Semitism and whether or not the progressive left bears any burden of responsibility on it? Is she there? We say she's there. All right, we're having trouble with Lee's connection. All right, Lee, what do you think? Lee, what do you think?
Okay, I heard if we're still talking about the two students that were
Yeah,
killed?
absolutely. What do you think? Is that a free speech issue for the progressive left to scream free Palestine and down with Israel? Or are they fomenting part of the problem?
I mean, I think it can be both in the sense of it's not illegal to say free Palestine. It's not illegal to, you shouldn't be punished for your opinion, but they also have to understand, and I put this in the laps of the universities, those in higher positions of power, politicians.
Yeah.
When you wind up people like this and when you give them the impression that there will never be any consequences for their actions and that they can stand in the schoolhouse door literally and tell students you're not allowed to come in, tell professors you're going to be blocked because of your race or religion. When you're doing all this, you're giving the power to those people and they feel as if they can do and say whatever they like. Well, that takes the lone crazies to another level and they get wound up and get sent out. And both parties have to take responsibility that your speech can sometimes incite things that you don't expect.
And that's the point I think that has to be made is there's a fine line between what is an opinion and what is inciting violence. And
Yes.
it's hard to regulate. To Butter's point, it's a very slippery slope. It is. But here's the thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with us having the opinion that they incited it. I don't know that anyone will ever be held to fully account for it. I don't know that we can say, hey, Harvard, you, oh, by the way, are guilty because someone was shot in D.C. Or, hey, Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib. But I believe they are. I do believe they are. I do believe that Rashida Tlaib is as much to blame as anybody else in fomenting the kind of violence that just happened. And she ought to.
But they are being held responsible in certain ways. Kristi Noem just sent a letter to Harvard telling them they can no longer bring in foreign students. And if people don't understand the level of money that's going to take away, foreign students pay full tuition by their universities, a lot of them China. If they're stripped of their ability to bring in foreign students based on this type of agitation, that's a serious blow.
Well, you're right. And that's a serious blow, and they can do that. And they're using their State Department power. Butters, what are you thinking, man?
So So here's a truly conservative thought. I think if we look to the government to try to fix this issue, we've already missed the mark, in my opinion.
That's a great point.
Does that make any sense?
That's a great point.
I think if we look to the government to fix the problem that we've got going on with this, then we've already missed the mark, and we need to have the bigger conversation. And I hate to say it, but it leads me to think about things and talk through, like, at what point do ideologies just not belong in the same society together?
I think
I know sounds extreme, but
that's a pretty reasonable. Charlie Kirk today said something very similar, and he's already getting heat for it. There's a lot to be said for this thing being also something that not only government shouldn't have to be called in to fix everything, but I also think the government's part of what broke this thing. I think government is part of the Biden administration allowed so much crap to just be okay, or at least not addressed, that, like to the point a minute ago made by Lee, it became a thing that with no boundaries, with nobody being held responsible or accountable, people felt empowered to do whatever they wanted to do. And this guy just killed two people and then screamed free Palestine. All right,
yeah,
listen,
I think it's,
go ahead.
So I think this is, we're at a place that's been a long time coming, long before the Biden administration. You got to go back a couple of decades, I think, to really.
Somebody made the point that they're surprised it took this long, which is a very pragmatic, horrible point to make, but I understand it. All right, let me change
testimony
gears.
To our system.
It does. Let me. It's a test. Well, there. Yeah. Let me make a time for another question. We got about 3.5 minutes. So state politics. It looks like, and we're going to find out Tuesday for sure, although I feel very confident, Senator Tuberville, is about to announce that he's running for the governor's office. Will Ainsworth just dropped out. Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth. Rick Pate, who was the ag commissioner, was going to run. He's dropped out. So is Tommy Tuberville looking at a clear run for the nomination for the Republican Party? And is there any Democrat you can imagine that could rise up and make it challenging for him in the general election? Lee, you first this time.
He will sail through this election. Name recognition, his conservative stances so far in the Senate, he should have no problem winning. And no, there's absolutely not one single Democrat that will make a whit of difference in this race. whatsoever. It's just name recognition. He's got it. Everybody knows him. I mean, even people who aren't diehard Auburn fans understand him, know him, seen what he's done in the Senate. I have to respect that, and I'll vote for him. But yeah, I mean, with Will Ainsworth bowing out, that was his main competition. That's it. He's as good as in.
What you think there, Butters?
Unless they get some pictures or something.
Don't say that. Pictures in a drawer we don't know about. Butters, what do you think?
I mean, I hate to jump on the bandwagon, but yeah, I mean, I think unless Nick Saban runs as a Democrat, I just don't see, like what competition are you really going to have? I think the real competition is going to be for that Senate seat, and that's
wouldn't that be
of course,
something though?
I know Tuberville hasn't officially announced, but
do we
whatever?
Do we want to see the Iron Bowl of politics? Do we want to see it? No.
Oh my God, no.
No.
No, we don't.
I think in today's climate, I mean, not only would Saban have to, if he wanted to run as a Democrat, not only would he have to sacrifice probably a extremely good salary with ESPN, but he would also kind of run the risk of alienating all the people who currently love him just for being the coach, because this
I think football trumps politics.
Do what?
I said, I think football trumps politics.
It's the other religion in Alabama. Of course it does.
in this state.
That's right.
No, he would. Saban's not political at all. He doesn't seem to really be like a political animal. I don't think he'd ever run for anything.
Although
I was joking.
I am hearing that there is and I can't say who, I won't say who, but there is a close friend of Saban who is looking at a possible run for the U.S. Senate. That will be interesting. All right, we got to leave it there. I'll leave that tidbit laying on the table. A little nugget. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, coming back round 2 with Butters and Lee, where they ask me questions, and I just hope for the best. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're going back to round 2 of Butters and Lee. This is the part where we flip the script and they ask me a question, any question, and I just see what they got. So I'm going to go with ladies first. Lee from Huntsville, pray tell, what question do you have from Wa? Oh, is she muted again? Lee, unmute your phone. Holy cow. All right. I'm gonna go with Butters. Butters, you get to go first then because Lee's having technology problems. So pray tell, Butters, what question do you have for me?
All right. So first, I'm super honored to fill in to mop cleanup. All right. So I know you had Representative Libby on yesterday, and I'm kind of curious if you wouldn't mind. Could you put your lawyer and politician hat on and explain, like you're talking to a constitutional law class, how like what's the rationale? Maybe if you want a steelman argument, like what's the rationale that got to that point that she found herself in? Does that make sense?
Rationale from her side or their side? The other side.
From their side. Like, how did we get here that this was even a thing? Because it just doesn't seem, it just seems so obvious.
Well, to do that, look, I'm going to have to use some, what we call in the law school, hornbook wisdom. All right. So, hornbooks are which basically it's the old school law. So let me go into some hornbook wisdom and just say, stupid is as stupid does. So there you go. There's your legal definition. So it's apparently embedded in the code or the rules of the legislature in her state in Maine. There is a rule that said that censure could prevent you from being allowed to vote or participate in floor action on the House floor, except that it's never been adjudicated before. So it just sat there on the books for God knows how long until this particular Speaker of the House, who is apparently a real piece of work, this particular Speaker of the House decided he was going to employ it because, by golly, transgender boys ought to be able to participate in girl sports. And the Supreme Court of the United States, it's the first time they had a chance to look at, because you can pass any law at all until it's challenged. It can sit on the books. And in this particular case, the constitutional review of this said, you can't just muzzle somebody who has not been convicted of a crime. Now, had she been convicted of a felony and removed from office, that'd be different. But in this case, all they did was just not like her opinion, and they shut down her ability to represent her constituents. So stupid is as stupid does, and there's your hornbook wisdom on that one. Good question, man.
I'm back on.
Hey, Lee, good to hear from you. Pray
Sorry,
tell, Lee,
I got switched off.
do you have a question? No, don't worry. Butters is over there. He got your back. It's all good. So, but
thank you.
What question do you have for me?
So did you see the where Trump took the South African president?
Yeah.
And played the videos of the party there trying to kill the boar and made him watch a video of the things that are happening right now to the white farmers, and all the news stations called it an ambush. What are your thoughts about what happened?
Well, my thoughts are that all the outlets are right. It was an ambush. My thoughts are it was also legit. So South Africa is one of those who believes that the way you fix the sins of the past is to commit more sins in the present. And it is absolutely, whereas we had apartheid for years and they got rid of it, only about 7.2% of the population is white. Well, so the black population, and by the way, I will say this, my understanding is that largely people live side by side in peace, but there is a growing level of not just hatred, but violence against white citizens in South Africa. They're burning their farms, they're murdering them, and then they have actual elected officials that are not just like what we talked about a while ago with anti-Semitism, sort of allowing things to go on. They're actually calling for it. I mean, they're holding rallies and they're chanting about, killing the white farmer. And they've just passed a law. The legislature in South Africa just passed a law allowing the capital to seize the land of white farmers if it is deemed that they own too much. And you can't run a country like that.
Do you think this is going to end up in a Zimbabwe situation
I think
where hyperinflation, lack of farmers, where they ended up asking them to come back?
Yes, I do. I think it's headed that way right now, and I think that it took a dose of cold water, like basically an ice bath yesterday in the Oval Office to hopefully wake that up. What's interesting too is the president of South Africa. He brought a white golfer. They have a professional golfer that he brought with him as part of the entourage to prove that there are white people who are okay. And this white golfer was standing there behind the president of the South Africa, and somebody asked him, "Oh, what do you know about all this?" He didn't mince words. He said, "My father's friends are farmers. Many of them had their farms burned and they've been murdered." He did not support his president at all, and I'm sure that was just one of those backfire moments that they wish they'd not brought the guy. But yeah. So do I think it was? I think it was rough. I think it was rough, but I don't think South Africa is going to respond well to the United States issuing a speech in the UN and hoping for the best on the UN Security Council. And then, maybe we'll just won't do as much, foreign trade with you. I think it took the South African president getting a dose of reality in the Oval Office. He got Zelensky.
I'm glad they brought it to the. I'm glad they brought it to the forefront of attention because it's definitely something that needs to be talked about.
It's also one of the only ways the press will deal with it because the press has been ignoring it in a big, big way.
In a big way.
Yeah.
But he wheeled out a TV in AV class and turned the lights down. It was great. It was great.
Yes. We just like having an overhead projector and they had to shine it up on the wall. But all right, you guys, that's it. We're about to hit the music, but I appreciate both of you. Butters and Lee, as always, on Thursday afternoons, and we'll have you guys back next week. Take care, y'all. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Especially the Butters who served ably in the Navy. All right.
Absolutely, both of you. Thank you for your service.
We're right back. Hour number 3 on a thankful Thursday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Oh, yeah, like the dude just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Thankful Thursday. It's a Thankful Thursday, and you're almost in go-home mode right now. I tell you what, you know what? I'm going to call it audible. I want to hear the thankful sound effect again. Hit me some thankful.
You got to be more thankful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
We thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
Have you said thank you once?
Thank you.
It's just good. It's just good.
You got to be more thankful.
You got to be more thankful. Have you even said thank you once yet? All right. Hey, listen, we got plenty more to do left in the show. We've technically only done one dipper, but we also had what may even be a mini dipper of its own because of the shooting that occurred in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Even though it technically could fall easily within my inside the Beltway dipper, I felt like it also deserves a standalone time. There's that. All right, let me jump on into the fact that every once in a while, we got to look around at where we live, like right here in the Southeast United States. For those of y'all that are listening in places like Washington State and Missouri and, you know, our buddy Marshall from Dubai, just know this. We, every once in a while, got to focus on where the studio sits. And so I got to look around. I find the news. I go, look at that. This happened over here and that happened over there. And sometimes the things that happen in your backyard actually make more of an impact on your life than what can happen in DC or whatever else. And that's when I got to do what I call cooking up a batch of home fries. Oh yeah, smell them, sizzling them up in the pan. Batch of home fries. All right, so here's one for you. Prattville, Alabama, which has been the center of controversy. Pray tell, Phil, what can be so controversial about Prattville, Alabama? I'll tell you what, libraries. Yes, the library. It's the center of the library universe, apparently, Prattville, Alabama. And because of Prattville, Alabama, a group called Prattville Pride, they felt that they were being excluded from libraries because, you know, it's very important that they sexualize young children. In order to live the gay lifestyle, this particular group felt like they had to sexualize young children, which is asinine. Children make decisions about sexuality when they grow up, not when they're in kindergarten. But they really, really, really wanted those transgender books and things about, you know, how to touch yourself and everything in the children's section. How about no? Well, the group's called Prattville Pride. Prattville Pride, the headline on 1819 News caught my attention. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. The headline is Gay Don't Pay. This is Craig Monger over. I don't know if he chooses his own titles, but Craig Monger over at 1819 is a hoot. And so his headline is Gay Don't Pay. The Prattville Pride now pleads for funds for their upcoming Pride Fest. So, Gay Don't Pay. Prattville Pride, the LGBTQ plus advocacy organization that thrust themselves into the national spotlight on more than one occasion, is now trying to raise its last-minute funds for its upcoming Pride Fest. Are we in Pride season again? Is that happening right now? Is that where we are?
About a week.
I'm so glad we don't hear about it all the time, every day, in your face, every commercial sponsorship, rainbow flags on the White House, all of it. Transgenders exposing themselves and taking selfies on the White House lawn, all of it. Anyway, Prattville Pride launched its first official event at Cooter's Pond. I don't know what to do with the fact that I've got one single sentence that says that Prattville Pride's at Cooter's Pond.
Sometimes the jokes write themselves.
Oh, God. Gotta gather myself. Prattville Pride is at Cooter's Pond.
What other pod would it be at?
I don't know. But I can't get over this. I may have to just move on from this story and do something else. I'm sorry, y'all. It's been a day, and I just when I saw that Prattville Prize trying to raise money for Cooter's Pond, I didn't know where to go. Oh my gosh, bless me, Jesus! All right, so the event received support from other groups both in and out of state last year, likely due to the group continuing to thrust itself into the middle of controversy around sexually explicit books in the public library. I'm not going with that joke. I'm not doing that next one. I'm just leaving that alone. I realize what Craig Monger did when he wrote this article.
Yeah.
Just one innuendo after another. Good Lord, Monger. All right. Said, however, this year the group is now asking for the public's help, and they're blaming on the city of Prattville, by the way. Of course they are.
Of course. Who else's fault would it be?
Because Prattville was going to give them a free green space, and now they can't have a free green space because they got an actual green space rental agreement. Wait, what? So now they're trying to find the new venue. I guess Cooter's Pond, and that's going to cost them $2,500. You mean you might have to raise money? Anyway, they're trying to raise money. So Prattville Pride, if you feel bad for them, you're welcome to send them money. They are 501c3 approved now, they say. And only 2 weeks left. We still need to raise an additional $2,500 to make sure our event is safe, successful, and joyful for the community. And we're doing everything we can with car washes, yard sales, and relentless grassroots hustle. Running the grassroots hustle at Cooter's Pond. Oh, I may need a break right now. Okay, that was almost painful.
You mean you don't want to send the money? No, Prattville Pride. Go Cooter's Pond.
Let me pray about it. No.
Okay, that was a quick prayer.
Yeah, thank you. All right, other things that are happening around the state. Let me do this. This is a good one. Tennessee, no joke. Tennessee, I pulled this off Center Square. Tennessee just passed their school choice legislation this year. It's a big, big deal. So the General Assembly in Tennessee approved basically the upwards of 20,000 scholarships of $7,295 each for the coming year. They expected a price tag of roughly $146 million. 38,000 people applied. So not only was this needed, it was wanted. Tennessee Department of Education said Tuesday, 38,160 families have applied for the state's first education scholarships. And that, my friends, is a clear indication that the legislature acted on something that the public really, really wanted. Says half of the scholarships for this year will be awarded to families whose income falls below 300% of the federal free or reduced lunch price guidelines, which would be $173,000. Less than half of the applications are qualified income scholarships, and the education department said, and then the remaining 19,000 are from universal scholarships with no income restrictions. So what they're trying to do is make sure that they're taking care of a lower income bracket first, and then eventually it's going to get opened up to everybody. But their first year, their first tranche of these is to allow up to 20,000 of them, and they had almost double that apply. I don't know how they're going to work the raffle, but that's what it's going to wind up being. It's going to literally be almost like a drawing, and this is going to be something else. But good on Tennessee for going down the road of passing comprehensive school choice. And their commissioner of education, Lizette Reynolds, said, the demand for universal school choice in Tennessee is strong, and families are embracing the freedom they've been provided through the Education Freedom Scholarship Program. Democrats also feel pretty indifferent about it. Yeah. Senator London Lamar, Democrat from Memphis, called it $1 billion boondoggle that shortchanges Tennessee's public schools. K. Spoken like a true teachers union man. Well, the teachers union supports my campaign. I got to be there for them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, school choice is a boondoggle. Yeah, that's the boondoggle. Yeah, not everything the Democrats pay for.
Oh, thank you very much. Absolutely. All right, so that's happening. There's a little bit of Alabama, a little bit of Tennessee. We're taking a break right now. I'll come back from the break and I'll tell you some more, like basically who's not running for governor. How about that? Who's not running for governor? And then did Pete Hegseth, is he live in Tennessee? Apparently so. And he and his pastor just raised some eyebrows at the Pentagon. I'll tell you all about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're almost halfway through the third hour of Thankful Thursday. I got a couple of stories here. One, I'll just go ahead and tell you, we kind of touched on it. During Butters and Lee. It's very interesting to watch the fact that Tommy Tuberville has not officially announced his race for governor of the state of Alabama, but the whole world knows he's running. And so what's happening now is it's causing people who were planning to run to either pull out or to shift their look. I mean, keep in mind, a few years back, I say a few years, 2010, originally Kay Ivey was running for governor, and then she just saw the handwriting on the wall, and she stepped back and ran for lieutenant governor. And because of that, she became governor anyway. Well, right now, what we're looking at is a guy named Rick Pates. Those of you who don't know, he's the commissioner of agriculture for the state of Alabama. He's a good dude. Rick Pates is a really nice guy. I've dealt with him some. I've got nothing bad to say about him at all. I don't know what he'd be like as a governor. He's been a good ag commissioner, but he had been planning on running for governor against Will Ainsworth and has decided that's not going to happen now. So we're watching people drop out and then move over, and it's going to be interesting to watch. Here's what you got to watch for. Watch in Alabama as all of our statewide seats are coming open with no incumbents, like nobody. Open seats all around. You watch how many people are going to run for lieutenant governor and how many are going to run for secretary of state, because both those positions have become very notable in recent years. Kay Ivey moved across the street when Governor Robert Bentley had to step down. Lieutenant governor is a great launching pad to be the governor later on. Secretary of State, during all of the fiasco regarding the 2020 elections and everything else, became a very notable position that people realized actually has a lot of weight to it. I think it had been an underappreciated position until the last, 7 years. So anyway, you watch. That's happening right now. Here's another story I find interesting. I did not know Pete Hegseth considers his home of residence to be Tennessee. Did you?
I think I heard that somewhere.
I even heard a rumor that there's talk about him running for governor.
I think Yaffe talked about that yesterday.
Yaffe did. That's what it was, which I don't think is going to happen.
No. It's a fun story, though.
However, Pete Hegseth, who will fully acknowledge the fact that he's got a bit of a checkered personal life, has had a salvation experience, proclaims Jesus Christ as his Lord, makes no bones about it, and military.com takes issue with it. Phil, did you go to military.com? I did.
And proceeded to take a bath after.
Just literally go slather myself with disinfectant after I read this article. So military.com takes issue with the fact that Pete Hegseth hosted an evangelical prayer service in the middle of the day at the Pentagon and brought in his pastor from Tennessee. So a Tennessee pastor by the name of, where's his name? Oh, shoot. I just lost it. Pottinger, I believe. Yeah, Brooks Pottinger. Brooks Pottinger is his pastor from back home. He brought him in, and they had a Pentagon service. And so listen to the way they read this at military.com, which is like just a liberal rag. Don't be fooled by the name. In a move that pushes the boundaries of constitutional prohibitions against state religion, we're not building a state religion. Do you realize there's a chapel at the Pentagon? Does anybody realize that Muslims actually pray in the various parts of the Pentagon? They put their. I mean, does anybody realize that there's Bible studies that happen at the Pentagon all the time? But Pete Hegseth stood behind the podium with a Department of Defense seal on it. Anyway, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth hosted an evangelical prayer service in the middle of the day, in which the pastor who was there praised Donald Trump as being sovereignly appointed. Well, he is. That's called Scripture. All authority is appointed by God.
I think military.com needs to be reminded it's freedom of religion, not freedom from religion, which I think is a distinction that a lot of people don't grasp. They think they get the two twisted. Separation of church and state is not what they make it out to be.
Okay, I'm going to step out and let you run the rest of the show. That was good. That was great. A program for the event called it the Secretary of Defense Christian Prayer and Worship Service. It was held at the Pentagon's auditorium. I've been to that auditorium. And it was broadcast throughout the building on the internal cable network. Oh, no. JP, whatever shall we do? It's the end of society as we know it. While Hegseth made an opening prayer, the majority of the service was run by the defense secretary's personal pastor from a Tennessee church whose leaders have a documented history of advocating for male-led Christian authority. I'm about to say what in God's name. That is not, this article is not what is in God's name. This article is literally from the enemy. Standing behind a podium bearing the logo of the Defense Department, Hegseth declared, quote, "This is precisely where I need to be, exactly where we need to be as a nation at this moment in prayer on bended knee, recognizing the providence of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ," according to an audio recording obtained by military.com.
Stop. I like him enough already. You can't do any more to make me like him more.
When asked about the service, Pentagon spokeswoman Kingsley Wilson said, "Many different faiths have regular services in the Pentagon Chapel or elsewhere in the Pentagon, and Hegseth's office envisions these prayer services will be a monthly occurrence." Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I have some applause and maybe an hallelujah while we're at it? I like it. That was a perfect sound effect. Yeah, but anyway, so for our listening audience, just so you know, that pastor is from Tennessee. I am glad of it. Here's a story that I'll probably end this segment on. This one gets my attention. I'm a lawyer, and there's a firm, and I'll have to go ahead and name the name because it's news. It's in public record right now. Yellowhammer News has an article that came out yesterday. There's it's a good law firm, large law firm, Butler Snow, out of Birmingham, I believe. And Butler Snow was just caught using AI-generated case citations. So when lawyers, like I was up late last night working on a brief, right? And when you do it, you have to have your legal research. Here is the case, and you have to give the citation for where it is. And on page so-and-so of said case, it says this thing that I believe is controlling for our issue at the time. That's called precedent. And you have to use those case citations. And it's a big piece of, legal research is a big piece of the job. And then there's AI. And AI can help you find stuff, but AI is not supposed to make things up out of whole cloth. And so Butler Snow was forced to appear in court and explain why they should not be sanctioned for filing a legal motion that actually included fabricated case citations. That's like saying, hey, judge, there's a case of so-and-so that says this thing, it's very important, and you should rule in our favor, except that it was all made up. Like, that's beyond that's literally lying to the court. At the very least, it is inexcusable negligence on the part of an attorney who did that. So U.S. District Judge Anna Manasco issued the order after attorneys had represented Frankie Johnson, an incarcerated man suing the Department of Corrections, alleging that the defense lawyers relied on fictitious legal precedent. That's crazy. That's also lazy. You know what it is? That's lazy lawyering right there. I'll never forget, I say young lawyer, as a new lawyer, because I was in my 30s when I finally went to law school, being told by an older lawyer, you don't have to be the smartest lawyer in town. You just have to be the hardest working, and you'll beat every one of them. Put in the work, and you will win your cases. I have found it to be true multiple times. Because I'm not the smartest lawyer, but dang, I'm a hard worker. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right, and no representation made. The legal service performed the great quality of service for the lawyers, like whatever.
Except if it's AI.
Take a break. You are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew, I mean, it goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we now get to once again call Fort Benning. Fort Benning, and then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And oh, by the way, like I say all the time, that's just our radio. My word, you online audience, you podcasters, thank you so much for being a part of the family too. I like to say that anywhere in the whole wide world, go to the World Wide Web and you can find Rightside Radio, Rightside Media stuff. And we got a lot of it. Hey, by the way, before I commit, is the promo code still active? It is, isn't it? I think it is.
My understanding, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, hey, I got to make an announcement then. We just launched a new podcast this week, the very first edition of the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams, which is very cool. It came out Tuesday night at 6 p.m., I believe. So Tuesday night, 6 p.m., great job on the part of Butters and JP putting together the promos for it, getting everything ready, having it launched, and it got great reviews. It's gotten a lot of attention, and now a lot of other regenerated content, we would call it, where we can make shorts out of pieces of it, are up on all of our social media. The Just Right podcast with Phil Williams is designed to be like a deep dive conversation with some of the most interesting people you'll ever meet. And the very first one was a former Navy SEAL who now hunts down human traffickers. And we had a deep faith-based conversation, a war-based conversation, a family-based conversation, a freedom-loving conversation for a good hour and a half. But yes, the Just Right podcast, in honor of the new work that we've been putting together in our new studio here, the Just Right podcast launched. And as a result, we decided, you know what? We're going to celebrate. So we put up a promo code for a discount on our merchandise. So if you want to check it out, just check it out, first of all, if you want to, but go to the shop tab on the rightside.media.org website, rightside.media.org. Go to the merchandise shop, T-shirts, hats, coffee mugs. We got our bench shot glasses. There's only a few left. We got a new order coming in. The Bulletproof Influence bench shot glasses. Everything's 10% off if you use the promo code Just Right. So there it is, promo code Just Right. Order some stuff. And we actually been sending out a lot in the last few days.
By the way, I got a text in from Jerry from Decatur talking about the Just Right podcast.
Yeah.
I said, I enjoyed your interview with Jared Hudson. Both of you are really solid warriors. I was reminded of going through jump school in 1970 with 50 UDTs, which just finished 1 year PT in California.
Yeah.
They were trained if one guy screwed up and was told to drop and do 10, all 50 dropped and did 10. No room for error handling explosives. Love your show, Airborne.
Awesome. Jerry, thank you. Appreciate you. And that was that coming on the text line? Or
yeah,
was it?
Text
yeah,
line,
I see it now. I do see it. By the way, Jerry, hang on a second. Jerry, Airborne, you'll love this. I just saw somebody posted on my social media that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth just said they're finally going to increase jump pay. So get this. If you're a paratrooper on jump status, you get, and I believe it's an extra $150 a month for being on jump status, because what's your life worth? Well, apparently it's worth $150.
What to say?
Yeah,
I feel like it should be a little more.
It's a little incentive. But what was crazy was if you're jumping on reserve or guard status, it's prorated down to a couple of days worth. So you get like an extra, I want to say it was like $17 a month or something like that.
Man, that $17 gets somebody out of bed to go do jumping.
And yeah. Anyway, Jerry, appreciate you, Airborne. I've got a segment I'm going to try and do about woke wonders, but let me catch us on text messages. Jeff from Indiana, by the way, for those who were driving north, said, Phil, here's your traffic report for Nashville. Normal traffic pattern. In other words, it's crappy. Okay, so nothing special, just lots of Nashville traffic.
Jeff also commented on the YouTube earlier with your Cooter Panda joke. He said, Phil, truth is often stranger than fiction. You can't write that kind of stuff.
You can't write it. That one tore me up. That just caught me so off guard. I'm reading it. I'm like, wait, what did I just read? Okay. Mike from Florence says, here's an example of how important case law is. He said, in my rebellious days, I got a DUI. My lawyer presented in court a 20-minute observation rule where you were supposed to be watched for 20 minutes to make sure you didn't consume something that you could skew the breathalyzer result with. The judge asked him for the precedent, but he didn't have it. I told a friend about it. His lawyer got him off on it, but mine did not. Wow. See, there you go. It's not just a matter of saying, well, judge, I believe it says somewhere in the law. You gotta be able to cite it to the judge, put it on the record. If the judge won't buy it, you can appeal it. Anyway, Mike, sorry for you, glad for your friend. Jay from Hartselle said, it simply amazes me on how God or the mention of God offends people, but the same people will invoke him when they need to justify something. Yeah, no kidding. He said, God is not a political tool.
Yeah, and that, like, I'm not going to take a theological, moral, lecture from people who are atheists or people who don't believe. So don't steel man my religion to try to tell me how to be a good Christian. It drives me up a wall.
That's the second time I've heard the phrase steel man.
Yeah.
That Butter said that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But by the way, great point.
Yeah.
Let me squirrel.
Yeah.
But where does steel man come from?
So obviously, the term straw man, where you make up a fake argument.
Certainly.
Steel man is like, I don't believe in your argument, but I'm going to take your argument and try to lecture you from your belief of your own argument, pretty much. I mean, I may be, butchering the exact, but that's my understanding of it. It's like, if I was a liberal and I would say, well, Phil, you believe in lower taxes, then why don't you believe in, going, it's like, I don't believe in lower taxes, but I'm going to steal your argument and lecture you on it.
So is it steel like metal steel, or is it steel like I stole something from you?
Stole, like STEAL, man. Yeah.
Did you and Butters just make this up yourselves?
Nah, we did not know. We were not that clever to make it up for the show.
You are that clever. It could have happened. Jerry from Decatur checking in again. He says, whoop, whoop, my pay was $55 a month. Well, Jerry, you're an old school paratrooper then, brother. John from Huntsville says, that was a very messy Butters and Lee's segment. However, Butters did do amazing, even though I think he sabotaged Lee's phone. Yeah, for those who don't know, we got a part on order, which you said has already been shipped. Thank goodness. Our phones are down. We have what's called an interface that puts our phones into our broadcast system. And we made it through the storms the other night for the most part intact, except for that. Can we put that on a surge protector next time? How's that thing work? I don't even know. It doesn't have a power cord, does it? It just powers off the board.
Yeah, it's somehow lightning fried it. And just that part.
Okay. Lance from Hillsborough says, I've heard the press say that Trump was making baseless claims. About what? Oh, he's talking about the
South African
mm-hmm. thing. Yeah, the press corps is saying that, except for Fox, which is saying, yep, there it is. It's real. Brad from Laredo, Tennessee says, we need to start off right now teaching young kids that freedom of speech says you can say anything you want. You just have to be ready for the consequences. If it can be proven that what you said caused harm or damage to somebody or something else. Great point. Own it. That's right. You got to own it. If you're going to say it, you got to own it. And then Brian S. from Huntsville, Brian S. says, I'm just about the biggest Alabama fan you'll find, but I have to say that 15-10 beating in baseball is pretty good beatdown. That being said, Roll Tide.
They both scored a lot of runs.
All right, listen, I got a segment here that I don't know that I'm going to get a whole lot of it done, but I got to start with this one. It's Thankful Thursday. I'm thankful for coffee. Have I mentioned that lately? Coffee is the official drink of Rightside Radio, by the way.
I'm also thankful for coffee.
Coffee is the elixir of life, the nectar of the gods. It's good for you, I believe. Not this decaf stuff. We don't use unleaded coffee. It's got to be leaded. Leaded coffee all the way around.
Decaf's not coffee.
That's right. Decaf. It's some black waters, all that is.
Yeah.
So, speaking of coffee, I will say this. Unless you own the coffee shop, dishing out coffee is not a career path. Can I just go ahead and say that again? Unless you own the coffee shop, dishing out coffee is not a career path. By the way, slinging fries and chicken fingers is also not a career path unless you own the restaurant. But apparently, if you work at Starbucks, you can unionize because baristas got power. Barista power, baby. So Scripps News reports as of a couple of days ago, more than 1,000 Starbucks workers are on strike nationwide. Pray tell, JP, what is their grievance? Is it pay? Is it long hours? Is it working for the man? What is it?
Probably something stupid like dress code.
It's a dress code. It's a dress code. In a move that could delay your morning coffee, more than 1,000 Starbucks workers at 75 locations across the United States have now all gone on strike. Why? Because the protest is in response to the company's updated dress code, which requires baristas to wear a solid black shirt, whether crew neck, collared, or button up, underneath their signature green aprons, along with khaki, black, or blue denim pants. So what they're saying is, and by the way, I saw some of the strikers, and most of them look like they rolled out of bed. They're wanting to come to work wearing their flannel pants and house shoes, and they want to wear a T-shirt that looks like they washed the dog with it, and serve you food. And Starbucks is like, we're charging a little extra for the tall latte grande, so maybe we ought to look like we care. And they're having none of it. Starbucks Workers United, that's the union, by the way. Starbucks Workers United.
What a clever name.
Said in a statement, quote, Starbucks is a massive company without focus. Without focus. No, I'm pretty sure they got focus. It's called making money selling coffee. And you don't make money when you got rag bags that work for you. If you want to look like a hobo, go be a hobo. But don't pretend that you want to have a career being a barista and that you get to unionize. Anyway, Starbucks Workers United said in a statement, Starbucks is a massive company without focus. They refuse to staff our stores properly, give guaranteed hours to workers, pay us a living wage, or provide stipends to pay for this arbitrary dress code. We need fair union contracts now, all caps. You're a barista. Can I say that again? You're a barista. There is no dishonor in being a barista, but there is certainly dishonor in thinking that's your career path and you should unionize and demand a living wage for slinging coffee. The fact that you can put a little, leaf pattern in the foam does not make you a career path. It does not. That will not go on a resume. Well, thank you for coming in, Miss Jones. I see that you used to work at, checks notes, Starbucks. What did you do there? Well, I was really good at making the little leaf pattern in the foam. People really liked it. Well, that's great. How does that translate to you being a CPA? Well, it does not. You're right. The Seattle-based Starbucks argues the new dress code will enhance the visibility of its iconic green aprons and foster a sense of familiarity for customers. What they're trying to say is everywhere you go, you want uniformity of marketability. That's kind of a thing. It's branding. When you take, like, for instance, Rightside Media, if you notice, a lot of our stuff has the gold star on it. That gold star is part of our branding. I'm wearing it. Thank you very much. You've got it on the screen right now if you're watching live stream. Yeah. So, our branding is important. It's no different. The branding for, a restaurant, a coffee shop should, first of all, I don't know where this skull full of mush came from, but the person who put out the statement that said that Starbucks has no focus has never been in the Starbucks boardroom. And they refuse to staff our stores properly. I'm sorry, what is properly? What does properly mean? Do you need to have a 2-to-1 staffing ratio to customers? What happens here? Never giving guaranteed hours to workers. I'm sorry, you're an hourly employee who clocked in and clocked out. Just kind of the way that works. Won't pay us a living wage. You're a freaking barista. Or provide stipends to pay for the arbitrary dress code. Then go work somewhere else. And when you have to buy your suit because you're working in a professional, ask your boss if you can have a stipend to wear like when I walk in the courtroom and the judge says, where's your tie? Which they will do. Do you think I'm going to say, Your Honor, until the court provides me a living stipend, I'm not wearing a tie. This is arbitrary and capricious. I refuse to accept. Baristas on strike. It's so sad, man.
When I worked at Chick-fil-A in college, we had to wear the Chick-fil-A polos.
Oh, yeah.
The black pants and the belt and the shoes. And I went through shifts with lemonade that got spilt on me and sticky, all like my polo all sticky, coffee the same. I had a customer throw a tomato at me one time. And like all that stuff, it's like, that's just part of the job. And I was at a point where, I'm just looking forward to get a free chicken sandwich at the end of the shift, and I was okay with it. But it's like at the same time, you got to what do you expect? You're a barista, fast food worker.
I worked at Chick-fil-A. I was pretty sure I just needed to do it, wear a plastic suit sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, take it to a break, JP. We ran long on that one, but the baristas needed to be called out. I'm sorry, it was necessary. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, man, just like making common sense like a superpower. I'm trying not to laugh. Right as the music's coming on, I had this wild thought. What if I sent JP down to do a live remote from Cooter's Pond?
I don't even know where Cooter's Pond is. Obviously, it's in Prattville.
It's just one of those man on the street things.
I feel like I would enjoy being that person. Like,
I think this would be a hoot.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to do it. Remember when they had the Tide Against Trump? I wanted to float up the idea of, but obviously it was during the show. I couldn't do it. But like that stuff's fun.
Bro, I feel it coming. We're gonna have an intern program here at some point where either we send the intern out or we send you out and the intern runs the board so you can go have some time out and to get fresh air and all that kind of stuff. But I feel some man on the street stuff coming in the future.
It gets dangerous though if you go to
especially go to Cooter's Pond.
Yeah. You gotta go with protection.
My gosh, if y'all are watching the live stream right now, you realize I'm having a hard time. Okay. Jeff from Indiana checks in and says, Phil, if you do send JP to Cooter's Pond, you're gonna have to dress him up in rainbow colors so he'd fit in. We wouldn't do that to him. Listen, we would do that.
Gotta go undercover.
That's right.
Be like Matt Walsh, like the world-renowned DEI specialist.
Holy cow. Chad from Huntsville says, my dad used to tell us, my right to punch you in the nose ends where your nose begins. Has proven to be wise advice over the years. I like that phrase. That's a good one. I thank you, Chad. I appreciate you. And I appreciate your dad. David at Buc-ee's says, these people complaining about dress codes wherever they work would never survive in any branch of the military. Perfect. They would not. Although, I will say this, David, I would bet that they would have been the rag bags. Every unit had a rag bag. Joe Snuffy, the rag bag, who could make any uniform look like a rag, just because I don't know. There's something about some people, they have no military bearing. And so it doesn't matter whether you starch the uniform, roll the sleeves up correctly, put the beret on straight. They're going to still look like Joe Snuffy, the rag bag, no matter what they do.
Yeah, David at Buc-ee's, does Buc-ee's have a dress code? I feel like they do.
I'm almost positive they do. They got Buc-ee's uniforms, kind of Buc-ee's wear.
Buc-ee's attire.
I need to get a Buc-ee's golf shirt, like a polo shirt. I think they wear those, don't they?
Yeah, I think they got Buc-ee's everything. They need to get a Buc-ee's up around here.
David at Madison says they want free uniforms. Join the Army. There you go. You go with CIF and they hand you your stuff. That's the way it works. Grades are in. John from Huntsville says today's co-winners are JP, Phil, and Butters with perfect A triples. Congratulations. I guess Lee got left off. Lee could not help the fact that we had to put her on new technology. It was very stressful. And I'm pretty sure the Bluetooth didn't help a whole lot either. John C. from Madison said, we had one guy in our unit that would wash his clothes, then he would throw them in the bottom of his locker, still damp, and later on in the week, you would have mushrooms growing on his clothes, and the mildew smell was terrible. See? Joe Snuffy, the rag bag. There you go. Marcus from Huntsville says, you got to love those 60% soldiers. You know the ones. I do. Suddenly you have Beetle Bailey out there, a combination of Beetle Bailey, Joe Snuffy, the rag bag, and the Good Idea Fairy all rolled into one.